Okay, so BYU fans, pull up a chair here. Even after pummeling Colorado last year, winning 10 games in the regular season, making it an 11-win season after the bowl game, BYU is still taking some shots from the national media, still getting beat up a bit here. And I just feel like it's unfair. And some of it, I wonder, like Texas Tech fans. Texas Tech fans would not, if they were in the same position, they had the same season, there would be heads on sticks. There would be outrage. There would be heads on cacti. That would be happening right now. BYU fans, even Kalani Sitake was not willing in that press conference to fight for his team after crushing Colorado. Like, hey, we should have been really considered for the college football playoff. I wonder where if you had a little more Texas Tech in you, maybe this wouldn't be happening. Like BYU just doesn't really fight that much. I love them for it. They're great people. But, man, after that season, we're seeing a little bit more disrespect, and some of it coming at the expense of the arch rival, which would be the Utah Utes. So if we flash back to this season, we remember BYU started the year 9-0, and there was disrespect flying everywhere as that was happening, even though, part of that included a 38-9 win over K-State. No respect. No real respect for BYU. It included a win at SMU, which would go on to be one of the most impressive wins in the country, specifically among teams that were competing for the last at-large spot in the playoff. No respect. No respect. Everybody just waiting for them to lose. Well, they did lose. And lost, what would that be, 2 of the final 3 to finish 10-2? But then we're sitting there and you compare blind resumes. They should definitely be in the discussion for an at-large spot. Absolutely. They had an objectively better resume than Miami, who was considered to be one of the last teams out. Alabama, the resume is at least comparable. But then how about SMU gets into the field after losing at home to BYU? You would think that would have warranted at least some consideration, some conversation. It did not. So the disrespect was happening there. And I guess I should say, based on all of that, I would not be surprised. If you would have asked me, the day after the Alamo Bowl, would you be surprised if BYU didn't get very much national respect heading into next season? I would say, no, I probably wouldn't be surprised. So maybe I shouldn't act quite the way that I am about this. But, man, we get this from 24/7 Sports. They did a list of basically teams that they think are overrated. And it's BYU makes the list. It says 24/7 Sports early ranking, unranked. So they have them unranked. And they took the average of a bunch of preseason polls, way too early polls, whatever you want to classify it as. And they said BYU is averaging out at number 16. They would have them unranked. And here is the blurb. It's from Brad Crawford, who wrote this. Ranked as high as number 9 in one poll and unranked in several others, most organizations expect the law of averages to consume the Cougars. BYU brings back several key starters from an 11-win team, 1/3 of those victories coming by a single possession, including triumphs over Utah and Oklahoma State, essentially as time expired. The front runner for the Big 12 looks like, get ready for this, BYU fans. You ready for this? Just make sure you're seated. The front runner in the Big 12 looks like Utah or Arizona State, judging by the collection of preseason rankings, with BYU taking a step back from the top tier. So not only is this throwing out there, hey, we think BYU is one of the most overrated teams in the country, but it's also, we think Utah, and I know he's saying it's based on other polls. I've only seen the ESPN prediction picking Utah to win the league, but it's throwing out there that not only are you guys overrated, but your arch rival Utah, who went 5-7 last year and lost to you on their home field, they're the ones that are going to be the favorites to win the league. Crazy. And I'm somebody that I defend the Utah will bounce back thing. I think it's almost completely inevitable that they will have a much better season next year than they did this year. But to include all that, they're going to be the favorite, and then BYU's taking a major step back and shouldn't be ranked. Man, I don't know. The article even goes on to say BYU finished it's one of college football's most underrated teams, beat number 13 K-State, number 23 Colorado, college football playoff participant SMU. I understand. I understand why Utah gets love. They've got Devin Dampier coming in at quarterback, who I think can be very good. Kyle Whittingham is going to have a good defense. I don't think there's any doubt about that. That's going to happen. So they're also just a program with a bunch of championship DNA, and it's been winning for a really long time. And I have a hard time seeing them going 5-7 2 years in a row, right? So like they should get better. And so if you want to say, I was looking at those FanDuel odds the other day, and it was like plus 1,600 or whatever for Utah to win the league. If you want to say, hey, there's a lot of value in that from like a gambling standpoint to pick them to win the league, yeah, okay, I'm with you on that. I can rock with you on that for sure. For sure. To say that they should be the favorite, that to me seems perhaps a bridge too far. And the BYU thing, again, it's kind of the same deal. Like, okay, they did win a bunch of close games last year. Oklahoma State ending was wild. They found a way to get it done there. Like they were living dangerously for a long time, and some of those maybe would flip back on them. But they also did, you would have said that at 10-2, and then they got full strength Colorado and decleated them in the bowl game, which to me sort of justified what they had done throughout most of the year. So even if you're going to say, hey, maybe they'll have a little bit worse luck in close games. I mean, I don't know. By the way, they didn't have great luck against Kansas or Arizona State, which were also close games that they lost. So, some of that stuff evens out. I don't know. I could definitely see BYU being like 9-3. And it just seems like a little bit of a tough, being a little harsh. We'll put it that way. A little harsh in both cases towards BYU. Now, I'm kind of defending Utah here as well, but it's a little harsh and maybe just, kicking them while they're down sort of thing to say, well, you're not going to be that good. And, oh, by the way, we love your rival. Kalani, Sataki, Tom, you guys need bulletin board material. I'm supplying it. Obviously not from me, but I'm just making sure you guys are aware. There's plenty of bulletin board material out there if you want it. Okay, we'll end here with Alpha Cat. What's up, Alpha Cat? Appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Alpha Cat says, K-State basketball looking similar to KU football. KU cost BYU the conference title game. Now K-State b-ball causing teams to drop NCAA tournament seeding. No bowl for KU, probably no tourney for KSU. Yeah, it's a very apt comparison. And I've got to apologize. This was on the podcast, on the 3-Maw podcast. Check it out if you're a K-State fan. But on the 3-Maw podcast, somebody did bring that up. I think it was the 3-Maw podcast. Anyway, or maybe it was social. Someone brought it up the other day, and we addressed it. And Cole and I were both kind of like, this was like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago maybe, and Cole and I were kind of like, well, definitely see the comp that you're making, but, K-State has so much further to go, dug themselves so much deeper of a hole. No, I don't know. Now, the way K-State's playing, I just mentioned that Bart Torvik stat. Last 3 games, they're the number 1 team in the country. Last 6 games, they're the number 8 team in the country. Yeah, that's how Kansas was at the end of the year. Nobody wanted to play them. I don't think if I'm anybody in the Big 12 right now, I'd want to play them. And they're screwing up the Big 12 title race too, not just tournament seeding, but like that really hurt Iowa State's Big 12 title chances by beating them. So yes, very, very similar situations. And also, yeah, I think it's way too high of a mountain to climb in all likelihood to make it back to the tournament. You just have zero room for error right now. And you'll look back at a bunch of close games and be like, well, it felt like Jerome Tang almost gave the Texas Tech game away by refusing to take David Castillo off the floor because they were trying to get a message through to Doug McDaniel. Now, it appears that worked because Doug McDaniel's been phenomenal, and that's why they've been so good. But you almost like purposely lost that game to prove a point, it looks like. So that would obviously be a huge one to have on the resume. The Drake game, that was a game they probably should have won, lost in overtime at Sprint Center. TCU, they had a 6-point lead with 2-3 minutes left in that game and lost on the road there. That's another one. Baylor, they were up double digits in the second half. Like a lot of situations there where you can look and say, hey, if you get like 2 of those to flip back the other way right now, you could be talking about a realistic shot at making the tournament still. But it is what it is. I'm just enjoying that the basketball has been much more fun to watch from this team for now.